What's going on, Workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about you as an existing player, expansion prep. What should you be doing from patch 5.5 all the way to 6.0 and a release? And that's going to be the subject of today. But Chris, how's that merch looking? I think you just you got some stuff on its way. If you guys haven't seen,
I
links.
do.
So
I've got my water bottle, I think, set to arrive in the next couple of days. I've got a couple of t-shirts arriving through next week. I think you ordered a new beanie.
Yes,
Time
I did.
for yours to enter the Beanie Hall of Fame and take a little rest.
We'll put it like up on my wall next to Mega Man.
Frame
That's actually linked. Mega Man's on that side of the corner, on that side of the wall. Yeah, a little shadow box. Oh, it's a whole new era.
Beanie.
It's like so many people subscribe just because it's green. They're like, I'm done.
I'm done. Mass unsubscriptions when we move to Work to Game Beanie.
So guys, be sure to subscribe to help us offset mass unsubscribes with
Say
with
farewell
the
to the beanie.
And be sure to hit that like button. You can always tickle dislike button. You know, we see a couple ticklers out there. It's always great to know that you exist. Go ahead, Chris. Let's talk about
So we welcomed new players in recently who are people who are just getting to Shadowbringers for the first time. They're just finishing Shadowbringers. They're just hitting level cap. Wherever they are in that kind of new player experience, feels like it's wrapping up, and they're seeing all of us talk about these last waves of content from Shadowbringers. And they're wondering how to kind of get on pace, what to do first, because you're on this very on the rails, and then you kind of just get to the last station and you get off the train, and the whole world, you can pick any direction and run there. And so it's a lot to talk about. But we also, at this time, this is a really common season for people to come back and return to 14. They come back after a long break, maybe multiple expansions, maybe just since early Shadowbringers. They come back as we start to hype for the next expansion. There are current players who've been kind of dabbling, but as we start to get hyped, they want more 14 in their life. And then they realize the amount of content they've been consuming, they don't really, what else should I be doing? They end up jumping around in Limsa, and they're like, I should be doing something, shouldn't I? So as we start to prepare, what are the things, I'm sure we'll have several of these videos the next several months that'll all kind of come at it from a different angle. What going into 5.5 would you say to a returning player or a current player starting to scale up as we go into an expansion? What can they be doing now? What should they be careful of right now?
Honestly, I think it comes down to a couple of aspects, right? When you talk about gear, progression, that mindset, if you're having fun with the game and you're not burning yourself out, see if you can get a full 530 set, see if you can do that. If it doesn't burn you out, that's going to be the theme behind all of my answers. So any answer from here on forward, just insert that anytime if you feel like I'm saying you have to do something. Just manage your burnout appropriately. But outside of that, you just need to hit 510. Like 510 is easy enough to do, especially with 5.5 removing the weekly recap. My phone buzzing. There we go. It's one of those emergency alerts. Be safe, all. So yeah, like 510 is going to be it. So that's something that you can easily knock out very, very easily. And that's when you go into the expansion, you're going to be more than prepared for what they're going to throw at you. And plus, they'll also start throwing you leveling gear pretty quickly. So now if you're in a full 530 set, like what that benefits for you. So if you're like, well, why should I spend the time, grinding up to get to 530? Well, that's going to carry you all the way to like level 87, 88. If you have your relic, that will take you all the way to level 90. It will be then replaced quickly after with new pieces of gear and what have you. So just accept that your relic, the investment comes in now within the next couple of months, and then also within the expansion story cycle. Now, there's also a couple of caveats. We don't know. They say 6.0 is going to end the story. So who knows what else is going to change, right? So this is kind of exciting. This is a really exciting time. The core aspect of it is to focus in on what actually brings you the most joy. And if that's crafting and gathering, what you'll see within any kind of commodity market, that things are going to go up and down in price. So if you are sitting and you wanted to start to say, hey, I want to make a lot of money. Well, at the time of the expansion or the patch, releases, both the point one, the part 1 and part 2, be sure to be in a mode to sell. So if you're like, what do I do this weekend before 5.5 drops? Get ready to have things on the market, because the market's going to most likely move. You have a lot of people returning. You're going to see markets move. Those will kind of taper off a little bit here and there. But what you'll probably see is a little bit increase in that market once we actually have rock solid prices on these gilded mounts and more.
Right.
So it's like you'll see kind of an overall movement in the economies themselves. So what you want to do when the market dips down, just from and this is all expansion prep, go in and start buying up items that tend to hold on to their value, where their value might be deflated. And then that way, when part 2 drops, or even when the expansion drops, you're actually sitting on a lot of materials that you can do that. This is also utilize your retainers, like get them going out there and gathering up items and materials for you, so that way you're not having to worry about it and you can just kind of play the game. And so that when the expansion drops and the markets are hot, you're just ready to capitalize on all of that. And I think that the fact that we see Gil making a return, hopefully that's a trend that continues, and hopefully that means that Gil is going to continue to have an increased level of value, especially as it turns out to have varying rewards and who knows what other changes that are coming to the game itself. But that's what I would focus in on. Like at the end of the day, like how I approach it, and then I want to let Chris kind of talk about his approach, because he's like, it's an interesting perspective. Full-time streamer, dad, and occasional video, well, probably an overproducing video nerd. So how I am going to approach the expansion, I'm just going to make sure that I have a lot of fun with my friends, and we're going to find like things to do together. Mount farming, most likely maps. This is a huge map season for me. Maps. A, it's fun. B, it's random in the sense it's got a little bit of variety to it every time. And then and C, it's just great to hang out and play with the community. So if you're not a content creator, find either a new one or get involved and get into their streams, because it's an exciting time, especially if you're working on a grinding perspective. Right now, we're going to enter into an age of a massive return. So what you'll end up seeing is that this is the time that a lot of players come back to prep for the expansion story. And so it ends up being a great time to be a part of the community. It ends up being a great time to play the game, find things to do. And those are my thoughts at a high level. Chris, I monologued. It is your turn, sir.
So I moved to full-time in January, and it's transitioned the way I play. So how I played before is I focused on one class at a time. I just did one class for an expansion. If there's a transition mid-expansion, then I have 2 at cap. But traditionally, I just level 1. Now, this expansion, we've seen some shifts where, like in Boja, you can be working on the relic for that main class while putting experience on any other job that you have above 71. And so there's been an excuse to throw experience to kind of just make sure you're capturing it. So there's been an excuse to be efficient. And so I've accidentally leveled Black Mage from 70 to 80. My White Mage is accidentally well on its way to 80. They're just kind of trickling their way up. They're just falling upwards as a result of the relic system. I'm only working on my tanking relics, and as a result, it's very likely that I end up with 3 or 4 level 80s, in addition to all of my tanks now at 80. Now, as I move into full time, I've wanted to broaden my knowledge of the game, and so I want all my tanks at cap. I want all my healers at cap for next expansion, and so I've had to. This is a time where, from my perspective, it's a great time to work on things that I get to keep. When Shadowbringers goes away, all item level, all, mount speed, any of that stuff that is tied to the first doesn't matter. It gets replaced. You can go put 80 hours in a relic, and it will be replaced the moment you finish the story and get a weapon to drop from something. It'll go away in days or weeks, not months. It's going to be gone quick, and it's going to take you weeks and weeks to earn it from starting right now through what we're getting in 5.55. So time value, you're way better off just getting the new thing on that kind of gear treadmill that we've talked about a lot lately. So what do I get to keep? I get to keep experience. So Brian has all his jobs at cap. That's a difference in the way he plays and the way I play. I don't. I have all my crafters and gatherers at cap. I have all my tanks at cap, but I don't have healers at cap. I don't have all my casters at cap, and I'd like to start there. So I'll just keep drilling down those. And Esoterics has been a great excuse to put Praetorium in my life every day, and it's kind of formed a habit. So Praetorium will probably stay in my life more days than not out of the week, even after it's not dropping Esoterics, because it's a free level. It's a movie roulette. It's super quick to do as experience-wise, and it's in trade for not super quick when you run it. It's an hour of eating a sandwich, playing another game. It's effortless, and so it's not the fastest way to level as far as like active hours playing, but it's not active. I wouldn't categorize it as active leveling. It's semi AFK leveling. And so I think leveling up jobs will be a big part. Getting my inventory clean, The expansion is going to shower us with all new types of things to gather and craft and deal with loot and armory space. And yes, our armory space is getting a little bigger in a couple slots, but ultimately, like, you're going to be pushing because you're going to have all this leveling gear come pushed in, where right now you just maintain your best set for a role. I'm going to have 80, 82, 84, 87, and 90 stuff for tanks. I'm not going to want to toss that stuff until they're all at 90. And so having armory beaten back, having 1 or 2 retainers that are empty or close to it, having my glamour plates and stuff just the way I want them, all the little quality of life things, having my UI cleaned up, anything that's just bothered me and I didn't want to deal with. I have a couple of, so inside when I change jobs, I macro into different UIs for different roles, and it's all baked into the macro. Now that I'm starting to spend a little time on things that aren't tanks, there's things I don't like about those UIs. Spend some time with that. This is a great time to, like, when you're in game and you want to hang out with people in voice or in stream or whatever, and you want the game to be up, but you don't have anything to do. It's a great time to do all the housekeeping that makes the game more enjoyable, so that when we're in new content, you're not doing housekeeping while your friends are off running the new dungeon or the new trial or whatever. Do that stuff now. And so 5.5 is a great chance for me to look at the patch notes and just work down that list. And when I get to the end of that, but don't be in a hurry to just straight blast down the list, because it's a long patch. So I work down that list after I do my daily stuff each day. So if I want to run Praetorium or if I want to work on a beast tribe for a mount, make sure I do that every day. And if that pushes some 5.5 to tomorrow, that's fine. It's not going anywhere. 5.5 is an incredibly long patch. It can be a 6-month patch cycle. We don't have a date on the expansion yet, but it can be that. We'll know that date, May 15th and 16th. So that would be my advice for returning players. Come back, get caught up, and then look honestly at what are the things you wished you'd achieved this expansion. What are the things you'd always wished you'd done? You wish you made it to the top of the Kugane jumping puzzle. Great, go work on that. It's a great chance to go knock out all the things you never seem to have time for, when suddenly you have the energy to play and you don't have anything to channel it towards.
So I would say, as just kind of a caveat, we've kind of talked about this in a dedicated video, but I think it's an important aspect, because if you're new, you've never been a part of an expansion launch, and this is your first time, and you're like, this is going to be great. Just note, there is a kind of big ugly monster behind the closet and we don't know what he's going to eat, and it's going to be one of your probably favorite jobs. And one of the things that we tend to see, especially in terms of unnecessary community drama, and this could probably be said about any game, but let's just focus in on 14. They, like, Astrologian is a great example. I did not like what they did when I played it out of the media tour. A lot of people did not like the changes. Overall, like, I understand why they made those changes. Astrologian, again, is suffering a big change. So if you're sitting here and you're, like, loving a particular role, so if you focus in on the 5 roles, and you really like that role, maybe, if you haven't already, have a backup job in that role. So this is a really good time, especially once you caught up on story, to do that, because the worst case that could happen to you is the expansion drops, or prior to the expansion you start seeing content creators talk about the changes, and it's like, oh no, people start ballparking the changes.
Gutted, ruined, dead.
Right. And so what you
words like that'll get thrown out.
Right. And homogenized, and that's really what happened, like over with healers and tanks in ways. It depends on what your view of them are. And at the core of it, like, just have a backup job within the role that you prefer, so that way you're not starting the expansion already in a disadvantage. Now, here's the strength here. Here's the where that advice, you can ignore it completely. If you're a part of a healer role, or if you're part of a melee DPS role, we know those jobs are actually starting at level 70. So in case, you might not like the job, you might really be excited about the job, but in those roles, you actually have, you already have a baked in high level, job that you can kind of pick up, start, and go from there on. So those would be the exceptions to the rule. Now, personally, I like having everything leveled, so I'm going to have everything leveled. So this kind of doesn't really apply to Brian, but it applies to, especially if you're like, I really enjoy playing my white mage. We don't know. White mage could be awesome, and it has been for the last couple of expansions. It's, reckoning can be a thing. Sometimes it's like the cards might fall on Astrologian. People are worried about its change. It could shine because it could be getting the most amount of attention, and therefore actually have the most to gain from the expansion. But we see it time and time again. We're getting 19 new jobs, whatever the number is. We're not getting 2. the whole system gets reviewed. All jobs get reviewed. They, not only they're getting 10 levels, but they're also looking at the whole kit. And
New abilities, prunings, gear, the way they focus gearing. Remember, we're getting rid of belts as a slot. So like everything across the board gets revisited. The encounters are balanced differently. The dungeons will be paced differently. Everything gets at least looked at.
Yeah.
And if they don't think it needs to change, it doesn't change that much. But everything gets rebuilt slightly. Some things get totally changed. Machinist undertook a major change going into this expansion. So there are massive changes that can go to jobs, and whether or not that is good is a individual thing. Now, it might be the case that 80% of players that touch it all have the same opinion, but it is each their individual opinion. I played Warrior this expansion. It has not been, when I play the other jobs, I'm aware why I'm relatively alone when I stand up and I'm proud to be a Warrior main.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why there's not that many of us. Compared to people that are proud to be Dark Knights and that are at least vocal about it. Maybe there are, I don't have the numbers, but I definitely feel like when I go into content, it's not me and another warrior usually. And so I found joy in it regardless, but if I had my other tanks, I had my Paladin at cap going in. If I had other tanks ready to go, I could have made that switch easier. And that's definitely a good point. So that's returning players, come back, take a look at all the content that's been released. Go try it out. Blue Mage has finally made it to a complete thought. Remember, they designed the 50, the 60, and the 70 content all in one go, and then only gave us Chapter 1, and then Chapter 2, and then Chapter 3. So this is the first time we've seen what their idea of a complete Blue Mage skill set does. Go try content, and it's a fun time to log in where fun is really the only goal. And it shifts hard because at 6.0, it turns exactly on its head. And getting done with your story gates everything. Getting to cap gates everything. So there's this, right now, there is so little that you need to do. It's all about what you want to do.
Yeah.
And the day the expansion drops, everything you want to do, there's a pretty good chance that it's locked behind something you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to turn on its head. So just take advantage of each season for what it is.
All right. So last thing that I want to talk to, and I want to talk to the content creators or those considering jumping into content creation directly right now. So feel free to clip this. Whether we don't have that feature on YouTube at the time of this recording, but YouTube essentially rolls us out. So feel free to share this moment because it's really important, and we see it time and time again. If you're thinking about jumping into content creation or doing content creation around 14, the date is not the release of Endwalker. The date is now. Start now. Don't start when the hype around Endwalker and you're thinking, because we'll get this numerous times, and I'm not trying to disparage people from reaching out to us for help. What I'm trying to say is that a number of people who say, hey, I'm thinking of streaming Endwalker at launch, like that's not going to be a really positive streaming experience for you because we're so protective. We're in the community sense, not me and Chris, are so protective of the story. Those are like hard streams. Chris is going to go live with 5.5 early on Tuesday so he can get the story done and experience it so that from a streaming and content creation perspective that the rest of y'all can kind of sit down and not have to worry about spoilers for part 1 of 5.5. That's how the community reacts. And it's a shocking thing if you're coming over from WoW, if you're coming from some of these other games, just how sacred the story is. On the flip side, the community loves watching people react to the story. So being able to have that content and then be able to toss that up in terms of clip of your reaction, people love finding that once they've experienced that for themselves. So if you're considering content creation, today's the day to start. It's not the launch of Endwalker. You're going to get crushed because anybody who's already established is also going to already hold those audiences. And I hate that, kind of numbers game, but this is just what I want to say to you right now. Hit go live, hit record.
Right? You wouldn't say like, I'm going to join basketball and I think I'm going to pick the game up when they're drafting, teams. Like I think I'm going to try the game for the first time. Me and my buddies are going to get together and we're going to try to enter March Madness. Like that's not how that works. So like, that's the season. That's the time. We spend 2 years building to a new expansion. Then we spend 2 years again. It's a great time to practice. So especially to people who aren't done, they're like, well, I want to finish Shadowbringers. Actually, the community would love to see you finish it. So you can get better at streaming. You can make sure your setup, your overlays, everything works. You can make sure you're having fun and you can do it in a way the community would love to share with you. And so you can, the people who are engaging with your content will have a blast. You will get to learn, and then you will go into the expansion making better content for having practiced. And you'll be better prepared for what it is, because launch is just craziness. It's just craziness. Everything from FanFest forward, just assume there's no gravity. Up is down, down is up. It's an interesting time to be in MMOs, and it's fun to be part of the community, and it is a hard thing to replicate.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So let us know what you're thinking. And also, if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. We'd love to get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. We got a little ways to go, but we're going to go ahead and start kind of just asking you guys to hit subscribe, because honestly, this community is by far some of the most generous and most welcoming people that we're so happy to have. Also, want to say thanks to the Captain Watt, to 17, and the Links for hitting that follow button over here on Twitch. We're trying to get to 10,000. So a big discrepancy in numbers, 100,000 on YouTube. 10,000 here on Twitch. But thank you guys all for your support, for your lurking, for your just being here, and your comments. We really do appreciate it. Chris, why don't you sign us out?
Well, guys, we are putting out videos 7 days a week here on YouTube. Brian is posting over to Ginger Prime. I am sometimes posting over to Gaming Kinda, and we are live on Twitch Monday through Friday at a minimum of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., but many times starting earlier, having later. Great schedule. Go say hi to us. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name's Chris.
My name's Brian.
And we'll see you next time.
Take care.